Not long ago, I visited the Museum of the Southern Jewish Experience. If you haven't been, it is a remarkable place. Tucked right here in the heart of New Orleans. The museum takes you on a journey through time, with room after room, object after object, telling the story of Jews who built their lives, their synagogues, their families, and their communities throughout the American South. It is a testament of resilience, migration, and adaptation, how Jewish communities flourish in unexpected places, how they faced challenges and found ways to keep their traditions alive while contributing to the broader society around them. Walking to the museum feels like walking through generations of stories, each exhibit a reminder that our Jewish history here is deep, complex, and profoundly meaningful. Some of the objects took my breath away. You see photographs of small town congregations, Torah scrolls that once traveled by wagon or riverboat, handwritten letters, family heirlooms, and business signs that speak to the ways Jews were woven into the fabric of Southern life. A peddler's cart, the kind that went down dusty roads, a register machine from a family-owned store, old synagogue bulletins, yellowed newspapers, photographs of Hebrew school classes long since scattered. Then I saw a pair of tefillin. These tefillin were carried across the ocean, lovingly wrapped and packed into a small suitcase by a young man fleeing the terrors of the Nazis. I was told they were his last link to the world he was forced to leave behind. Perhaps the only tangible piece of his Jewish life that he was able to bring with him to America. In those simple black boxes and worn leather straps lies a whole story. A story of a faith that could not be destroyed, of survival in the face of unimaginable loss, and of the courage it takes to cross an ocean carrying nothing but the fragile hope that life and tradition might somehow continue. The man who carried those tefillin was Joseph Scher, father of our very own Leopold Scher. In 1949, at just 33 years old, he arrived in New Orleans with his wife after 4 years in a displaced persons camp in Germany, having escaped Poland after the war. They came by ship with almost nothing but a suitcase or two and those tefillin. I stood in front of them for a long time, just staring, deeply moved. I could almost hear the El Maleh Rachamim that he taught his son Leopold, and that we hear every discourse at our synagogue. At first glance, all those objects are just things. But if you pause, if you listen, those things are voices. They testify, we were here, we believed, we worked, we struggled, we raised our children, we left a mark. Each object was not just an artifact, it was a life, a legacy preserved. They remind us that sometimes the smallest, humblest objects can bear the greatest weight of memory. And so, standing there in front of those museum exhibits, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't just looking at relics behind a glass. I was looking at whole lives, stories distilled into one fragile object. It made me wonder about the ways we are remembered and how our deepest commitments are carried forward after we are gone. I began to ask myself, what would be my object? If someday a curator tried to tell the story of my life, my choices, my relationships, my faith, What single item could they choose? What small, ordinary thing could somehow capture the essence of a lifetime? And so I want to ask you the same question today, on this day of reflection and judgment. As we stand before the book of life, what would be your museum item? One day, many years from now, what will remain of us? What will future generations hold in their hands and say, this is who they were, this is what they valued, this is what they gave their life to? Would it be a torn, worn out siddur with creases where your hand held it week after week in prayer? Or perhaps a recipe card smudged with oil and flour that brought generations of your family together around a holiday table. A Haggadah stained with the memories of Seder's past. A pair of marching shoes worn thin from the day you stood up and walked for justice. Perhaps your passport, stamped with the places you traveled to expand your horizons or return home. A journal filled with your innermost reflections and dreams. A trumpet or a guitar that gave voice to your soul's music. A book, a painting. If someone generations from now wanted to understand who you were, what you loved, what you lived for, what object would they place behind the glass? This is the heart of Rosh Hashanah. Zikaron, remembrance. On this day, our tradition tells us God remembers us, not only who we are in this moment, but all that we have been and all that we still might become. The book of life is not just a metaphor for judgment. It is also a book of stories, the story of our lives. Every year, Rosh Hashanah invites us to ask, what story am I writing with my life? What chapter am I creating now, today? The book of Psalms says, teach us to number our days so that we may gain a heart of wisdom. The psalmist does not say, teach us to counter our years. It says days. Each day is precious. Each day is fleeting. Each day is an opportunity not to be wasted. Time is limited. That is why the shofar we hear on this holy day is not a gentle melody, but a cry, urgent, piercing, raw. It says, wake up! Wake up from complacency. Wake up from distraction. Wake up to the truth of your life. We are not here forever, but while we are here, we can live with such fullness, such depth, such courage, that even one object can carry our stories from generations. On this day, we pray, Zochreinu lechayim, remember us for life, not just for surviving, but for a life that is remembered, a life that leaves a trace, a life worth of being recorded in the book of life. Think of the book of life as the ultimate museum exhibit. Each page, each artifact is someone's legacy. The question is not merely, will your name be written? The question is, what story will it tell? And this question is not only on a personal level. It is also collective, because we are part of a story much larger than ourselves. Realize that one day, someone might walk through a museum and try to tell the story of this synagogue, this community. What will they see? What will they say about us? Will they see a congregation that came together in love and in commitment, that embraced one another across generations, that gave its children a living, breathing Judaism, not a memory frozen in glass, but a vibrant tradition, alive with song, with prayers, with joy? Or will they see a beautiful building, silent and still, Like so many synagogues in Europe and around the world, synagogues that once pulsed with life and laughter and with Torah, and now they stand only as museums. Their sanctuaries are frozen in time, visited only by tourists and tour guides. We must be careful. The transition from vibrant community to silent museum can happen faster than we realize. It begins not with some dramatic closing, but with slow, quiet drift. A little less engagement here, a little less connection there, until what remains are only memories of what once was. That is why this year we made one of the most significant changes in our congregation's life, moving our religious school from Sunday to Shabbat. This decision wasn't just about scheduling. It was about a vision to make the Shabbat the beating heart of our community, a time when every generation can come together in sacred purpose. For too long, our children would come on Sunday mornings to a quiet building, learning about Judaism in classrooms while rarely seeing adults engage in Jewish life around them. Meanwhile, those adults who came to Shabbat services on Saturdays rarely encountered our children, the future of our people. It was as though two worlds existed side by side but never met, like visitors walking through separate exhibits in a museum. I don't want our children to experience their Judaism as a museum, as something they visit once a week, removed from real life. I want them to live it, to breathe it, to see it with their own eyes. I want them to hear the stories of our tradition directly from you, their parents, their grandparents, the elders and friends. I want them to pray and sing beside you, to eat at the same tables, to witness what it looks like to live Judaism fully. I want them to feel the energy of a sanctuary filled with voices of every generation, learning, laughing, loving together. This change was made so that Judaism is not something they study about, but something they live. It was made so that one day, when they look back, they will not remember quiet classrooms and empty hallways, but a community alive, with warmth, with music, with faith. So today, I invite you to reflect with me not only on your own object of remembrance, but on ours as a congregation. We will soon be celebrating the 25th anniversary of the merging of Tikvat Shalom and Chevra Tehillim, forming Shir Chadash. What story do we want this synagogue to tell 25 years from now, 60 years from now, 100 years from now? Friends, the museum of our people is vast. The shelves are already filled with the stories of our ancestors, our parents, our teachers, our heroes. And there is room for us too. What you're doing today, tomorrow, in this new year of life, to make sure that the object that tells your story tells it truthfully, proudly, meaningfully. Let us live this year in a way that when the curators of the future or the curators of heaven select an artifact from your life, it will not just say they were here. It will say they lived, they mattered. May we build a legacy so vibrant, so full of life, that no future museum could ever contain it. May it be a community of living memory, where every moment is seized, every generation is connected, and every soul feels the pulse of a Judaism that is as alive today as it has ever been. Shana Tova u'Metuka.